Hi everyone, I'm Allison Smith. We are so happy to have you here with us from the Energycast studios in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Let's take a look at May's top stories. Kairos Power is building the future of nuclear right here in Oak Ridge. The company just broke ground on its Hermes 2 reactor, and we were there for this major milestone. And a new leader at UCOR. We sit down with Jim Blankenhorn, the company's new president and program manager. He talks about his priorities as he steps into the role. Plus, 81 million pounds of rubble and debris removed. The Alpha 2 footprint at Y12 is officially cleared. We break down the numbers behind this massive cleanup success. If you're interested in stories like these that take you inside Oak Ridge, give this video a like and hit subscribe so you never miss an update. Now on to our top story. From the Manhattan Project to the next generation of nuclear energy, land that helped change history is now being used to power the future. Kairos Power has started on the first ever power-producing Generation 4 reactor. We were there for the groundbreaking. Kairos Power turned the first shovel of dirt on its Hermes 2 demonstration plant.
We desperately need energy today that has all the attributes that nuclear has, something that's reliable, secure, affordable, and safe.
The commercial scale reactor is expected to provide up to 50 megawatts of electricity to the TVA grid, powering Google's data centers in Alabama and Tennessee.
Kairos has a really important commercial agreement with Google to deliver 500 megawatts by 2035, although the time pressure is to deliver as quickly as possible. Hermes 2 will be the first 50 megawatts of that. And most importantly, Hermes 2 is the demonstration scale for the next 450 megawatts of power delivery.
Hermes 2 builds on lessons learned from earlier reactor designs, helping test construction methods and prepare for future deployment.
This is the harbinger of great things to come. The enthusiasm that we at the department have shown for the advanced reactor demonstration program, which paved the way for companies to really lean into their designs and get the first iteration of their development done.
Community leaders, elected officials, and industry partners toured the site where foundation work is already underway for Hermes 1. The site also includes support infrastructure to enable testing and construction activities.
We always knew we could do that iterative process on the reactor side. That was kind of where we were coming from. But being able to do that and get the value out of demonstrating things with civil infrastructure, that's really what we're doing at the site, and really fully leveraging the team that we're building has been tremendous.
The goal is a standardized design that can be built over and over with shorter timelines and lower costs.
So Hermes 2 really is the first reactor that will demonstrate all of that coming together for Kairos and actually in the industry as well. So it'll be demonstrating modular build for components that we're manufacturing in-house, as well as modular construction.
Hermes 2 is rising on the footprint of the former Cold War-era K-33 uranium enrichment building. DOE transferred the property back to the community for economic development after a massive cleanup effort.
Today what we're really celebrating is a company that has chosen this site to come out and build, and that really is the reuse or the closing the circle part of it in my mind, which is we had a use for this land.
The groundbreaking marked more than a new project. It's another sign of how former DOE land is being transformed for the next era of nuclear energy. Crews at Y12 are taking a closer look below the surface. The characterization process is laying the groundwork for both cleanup and future national security missions. On the east side of Y12, teams are collecting soil and groundwater samples to better understand land conditions. The work is supporting future construction while making sure any contamination is addressed first. The crews are using a new drilling system that allows for precise sampling with less disturbance and less waste than traditional methods. It digs into the ground, pulling up soil that is sent to a lab for analysis.
This particular area of Y12 does have a lot of history, so it's been really interesting to kind of get to learn all of the phases of buildings and projects that have been on there. But it's important moving forward that we gather all the data that we can gather to inform how we can continue to remediate and clean up the groundwater and the soil, and then how we can move forward into the Y12 modernization process.
Teams are characterizing land, buildings, and foundations across the site. They identify potential hazards before work begins and confirm conditions after cleanup. Now, their work is also supporting some of EM's biggest projects on the horizon. Crews have collected hundreds of samples at Beta 1 and Alpha 4, two former Manhattan Project enrichment facilities. Crews have officially cleared away the final rubble from the Alpha 2 demolition project at Y12. The massive facility is gone, and so is the risk that came with it. The crews removed more than 81 million pounds of debris from the site. That meant over 3,400 truckloads of waste safely disposed of at the Environmental Management Waste Management Facility in Oak Ridge. Crews also handled nearly 790,000 pounds of lead that is being prepared for specialized shipment out of state this summer. Well, crews at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, they are paving the way for another demolition project in the heart of the site. On the Lab Central campus, crews filled more than 100 feet of underground ductwork with a cement mixture to seal off a connection ahead of demolition. The work supports the eventual teardown of Building 3002, a former filter house tied to the historic graphite reactor. The two buildings were linked underground, creating a potential pathway for contamination. The step closes that path and protects nearby buildings when demolition occurs. The crews used hundreds of feet of piping connected to a pump truck outside the protected area, allowing them to place 25 truckloads of the cement mixture with precision and without disruption. It's another step in cleanup and in supporting future modernization at ORNL. We sat down with UCOR's new president and program manager for a cleanup conversation. Jim Blankenhorn brings nearly 40 years of experience supporting the Department of Energy, National Nuclear Security Administration, and Department of Defense. Here's our conversation on what's next for UCOR. What are your priorities these first few months as you step into this role?
I think I've got three focus areas or priorities. I'm looking at, obviously the first and foremost would be continuing our culture of safety, our safety performance, our safety programs. The second is continuity of mission. The team is doing a very good job, has been very successful, and I want to keep that momentum going during this transition phase. But we're also going to be looking at how do we accelerate and how do we do more. And so that's sort of the focus for the first 90 days or so with me. And then the final piece I'd have to say would be relationships. So as I come in, it's vitally important that I establish relationships with the workforce and with the unions and with the client, with regulators, basically anybody that has a seat at the table and skin in the games. I need to develop those relationships because those are going to be critically important to our continued success. So.
Well, and you talk about keeping the momentum going. So can you get into any specifics of how you want to move the cleanup mission forward?
We're going to have to innovate. We're going to have to incorporate new technologies. We're going to have to revise and update our methodologies and processes. We've got to optimize our operations. We have to find and recognize efficiencies that we can then reapply to get more work done and get it done at a faster pace.
And looking ahead, what does success look like for UCOR these next few years?
Let's say in the 3 to 5 years, I think we'll be looking at how we've done in terms of engaging and setting the conditions and facilitating the nuclear lifecycle campus, the nuclear resurgence. As I mentioned earlier, how are we doing on, or how have we done on facilitating the the infrastructure and the new builds for the nation's initiatives on AI dominance. And then the second piece to that would be, how are we doing in terms of eliminating legacy facilities and infrastructure? You know, this is closing the loop on the life cycle of Manhattan era projects and Cold War era projects, and creating the space for modernization and new facilities and new build on the NNSA and Office of Science side. So we'll be looking at those things, you know, sort of as a barometer, and gauging ourselves against how successful we're doing in that regard at any point in time.
Jim, thank you so much. This was a great conversation.
Well, thank you.
I really appreciate you being here. And it sounds like UCOR is in good hands.
UCOR was always in good hands, so I'm really fortunate to be able to join the team, and I'm really looking forward to the successes and the accomplishments this team is going to achieve.
Excited to see what's ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We have got much more from our conversation with Jim Blankenhorn on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe for more exclusive stories. From a secret city to a national park, the Manhattan Project National Historical Park is celebrating its 10th anniversary. Leaders and community members gathered in Oak Ridge to mark the milestone and celebrate the history it preserves. The park spans 3 sites: Oak Ridge, Hanford, Washington, and Los Alamos, New Mexico. Together, they tell the story of the people, decisions, and science that helped end World War II. In Oak Ridge, speakers also pointed to the site's role today in a growing nuclear industry. Local officials reflected on the park's first decade and looked ahead to how those stories will continue to reach new generations.
So what we made the decision to do is to interpret the entire town as the Manhattan Project National Historical Park. All the different museums, all the different organizations who are telling this story, this very complex story about what happened during World War II and afterwards, that's in generality is a part of that tells us the story of what it was like to be a person working here in this town. Because, of course, you know, the development of uranium, plutonium, building the bombs, very important. The science, very important. But really the story of the people who were here, what it was like to live behind a gate, to basically a lot of sacrifice.
You can experience that history in person at all 3 sites, or virtually through the National Park Service website. Do you want to provide input about what happens on the Oak Ridge Reservation? Well, now is your chance. A local advisory board is looking for new members. The Oak Ridge Site-Specific Advisory Board is now accepting applications. It's a federally appointed citizens panel that provides independent advice to the Oak Ridge Office of Environmental Management. Members submit recommendations on cleanup efforts and bring community perspective directly to DOE leaders. If you're interested, you'll need to submit a resume and a few basic details. Applications can be sent by email, mail, or dropped off in person. For more information, visit the website on your screen. SafetyFest Tennessee drew a big crowd this year. Nearly 1,400 people from more than a dozen states turned out for a week of free safety and health training. The event featured more than 100 classes, seminars, and hands-on demonstrations, including power line safety with the Knoxville Utility Board, a Black Hawk helicopter from the Tennessee Army National Guard, and a rollover simulation from the Tennessee Highway Patrol. The goal was to share expertise from DOE sites in Oak Ridge and make safety training accessible for people across the region. And before we go, be sure to connect with us on our socials. You can follow EM News on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and X for updates between episodes. Thank you so much for joining us. New episodes drop the last Wednesday of every month. Until then, you can catch up on past stories or share this one right here on our YouTube channel. We'll see you next month from the Energycast studio in Oak Ridge.